We add at least another 3 to 5 more states into our list. And what we are focusing on now is to continue embracing, collaborating, and finding partners that will be willing to participate and be part of this initiative. We have a significant number of volunteers, and those of you that want to volunteer, there is an application that you will have to fill out if you want to become a state representative or manager or county manager. As you know, there are 3,142 managers. We'll still have a lot to go and a lot to cover. So anyone that really want to participate and want to volunteer, it will be more than welcome. Dr. Khanna is traveling in the beautiful state in Georgia, connecting and collaborating and creating some great relationships in the state of Georgia. And we see a tremendous opportunity that could really happen out of the state of Georgia in terms of the partnership that we're creating. At the same time, I think that I'm not ready to announce it yet, but something big is going to happen. It's going to be happening in the New York City metropolitan area. We are also creating a great partnership with a local elected officials. I'm not going to say who yet. I'm going to let Dr. Khanna to make the official announcement, but a great partnership and collaboration is being created out of New York City, which is kind of our backyard here. And we're very happy and excited with all the tremendous growth and everything that is really happening in within the initiative. And also, I don't know if you noticed, the other day, what was that, about last week, President Biden kind of make a huge announcement which kind of put us on full alert and on guard, because a lot of people started calling. But as a result of the tremendous increase on crime nationwide that the country is having, I guess, let's blame it on the pandemic, the president decided to allocate a significant amount of money. So there will be a lot more resources that are going to be allocated directly from the White House to help post-incarcerated young adults. So we are very happy and excited for that move from the president, and kudos to him and his team. And we are open and ready. Dr. Khanna is always connecting with his contacts in Washington, D.C. to make sure that we can embrace any positive news that can help us, right, to continue helping the post-incarcerated youth in this country. Angelica?
Yeah, that's actually amazing. It's exciting that the Biden administration has actually done that, because those types of services are so necessary, especially to help to reduce the crime rate, so that people don't feel like they have to go back to doing things that were illegal or harmful or dangerous, so where they can have a productive lifestyle, where they can feel safe, where they have income, where they're generating their own income and working in a legal way to provide for themselves, take care of their families and all of that stuff. So it's really, really, really important to allocate funds to have those types of programs, so that people can continue to live productive lifestyles, safe lifestyles, legal lifestyles. Thank you for that.
At least what I see, and I'm sure we all will agree that the key issue, part of the key issue here, is that when someone get released from jail, that to be able to provide them the necessary tools, like part of our business model, our program, is to be able to help these young adults to adapt to society, to keep them busy enough so they don't start getting in trouble and go back into jail or create, some of these crimes and bad stuff that is happening. So the idea is to be able to I guess, put them through our model that providing them housing if they need housing, providing them the proper education, to train them, to find them jobs, opportunities, which is really well needed right now. And also hoping that if they do the right thing, one day they'll be able to be their own bosses and own their own business. Isn't that nice?
Yeah. That's and it's great to have the funds to allocate it to do that, because that's that's what helps. That's what helps to make a really big difference in various communities. So thank you for that. It looks like we are delayed with our amazing guest. So I want to shift gears real quick because we're highlighting the state of Tennessee today. Yes, that is where our guest is going to be tuning in from, right?
That is correct. That
Oh,
is correct.
awesome.
Why don't we go over some of these statistics and some data? I mean, it's very interesting to look at the numbers because, you know, if you go out there and ask people about the jail system, the composition, who's coming in, who's going out, and even the tremendous amount of increase in terms of the jail population, it's very mind-boggling to find out that people are completely clueless. They have no idea about what's really going on. Like if you look at this number, and maybe it will be you and I can really talk about this number while our guests will join us, because they are from the state of the city of Nashville in Tennessee, the state of Tennessee. And when I look at this, let me show you this number. I'm sure that this will create, it will be and it will create an impact on you when you look at the gender. Look at this, 1,431% increase in the number of women that has been put in jail in the state of Tennessee by 1980.
A 14,000% increase. Or excuse me, 1,400% increase. 1,400%. That's crazy in the last 30 years.
It's incredible when you look at the number. If you look at the whole state, you have a 242% increase from 1983. Believe it or not, the population in the jail system in the state of Tennessee was 13,144. By the year 2015, went up to 47,697 people.
Now, how much does that deal with the fact that the world is simply growing? And or is it that the folks that are in jail are serving such longer sentences so that when we have people that are new offenders that are coming into the systems, we still have all these other people that are serving sentences that are just way too long for anybody to be serving in the first place. And so now we have overcrowded jail systems.
Well, obviously, I mean, we cannot compare our jail system with the rest of the world, but if you look at the United States population, I mean, I don't think that the United States population grew 242%, right? I mean, yeah, we are growing at a normal pace, but when you look at the jail system, you are correct, Angelica. I mean, the number are really off the roof. I mean, looking at the region, the state of Tennessee is ranking number 2 out of the 7. There are 7 states in that region that this statistic, which are provided by the Vera Institute of Justice. This is a research that they did based in the year 2000, December 2019. A lot of cool stuff, cool numbers, right? What would you like to know?
That's interesting that you say that, because all of these analytics are from December 2019. And of course, in December of 2019, something drastic happened in the United States with dealing with COVID, dealing with the pandemic right now, the global pandemic that we are still currently in, right? And I really am curious to know exactly how that has our jail system and what that actually looks like. And oh my goodness, it looks like we have our special guest. So before I go down a COVID rabbit hole, I would love to introduce our special guest. This is Dr. Contrecia Tharpe. She is a marketing and branding and communications practitioner. In 2008, she opened, okay, help me say this. This is Neo MIC. Did I say that right?
New IMC.
New IMC, formerly Dulce Balletto. It's a boutique integrated marketing and communications firm in Nashville with over 12 years experience in the industry. She has worked with national and international brands, businesses and individuals and nonprofits, sports, entertainment, travel, small business and education sectors. She's an advocate for small and medium businesses, small and medium business success, and works to maximize and identify opportunities, craft strategies, and create solid business foundations for her clients. With a passion for education, redemption, um, and equity, she started the Dream Initiative with Robert Sherrill in an effort to change narratives around surrounding recidivism and second chances. That is all about what our post-incarceration initiatives are about. Tracy is a current board member of the Women's Leadership Organization in Nashville CABLE, that's CABLE, Youth Advocacy Organization, Impact Youth Outreach, and the national organization Shelters to Shutters, where she serves as their chair of communication. She is also a mentor with SCORE, that's SCORE, and Nashville's Entrepreneur Center. Having obtained her doctorate from, where is this from, Tracy? Treverica? I don't want to butcher the school. Am I saying that right? Treverica? Can you hear me?
I can't hear you.
Oh, Dr. Tharpe, you can't hear me? No?
I can see your lips moving, but I can't hear you at all. No.
I can hear you, Angelica. Yeah, you are live. Sure. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, so Tracy, go ahead and tune off and tune back in.
There we go. No, we're good. We're good. It connected to my AirPods, so we're good.
What university did you go to, Dr. Tharpe?
I went to University of Memphis.
Treverica.
Originally,
your doctorate degree is from Treverica?
Trevecca Nazarene University.
In 2019, and she's currently a faculty member at Nashville's Lipcon University in the communications department, where she teaches advertising, copy, and communication courses. Her second book, not the first, but the second book,
the second one,
will be released this fall of 2021. It is with great pleasure I would like to introduce Dr. Tracy Tharpe. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you. It's an honor. It is such an honor to be here, honestly.
I mean, well, whoa, what a bio.
I'm about to say, hearing you read it's so, of course, when you write it and when you read it for yourself, it's kind of like, oh yeah, I did that. But then to hear somebody actually read it, I sound more awesome on paper than, I know, I sound more awesome in person than I think that I am, so.
I hear that.
Yeah, definitely.
Welcome. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Tell us, I mean, we do have your bio, but I want to know about you and how you got started with the journey that you're on, how you got started with, of course, one of our partners, Robert. I would love to know how that connection happened.
Okay. So my name is Contrecia. I go by Tracy, but everybody calls me Dr. T. Just because I think it rolls off the tongue a lot easier than Contrecia or Tracy. And I met Robert in 2017. We had mutual friends and mutual connections here in Nashville. And with the services that I offer and then the business that he's in, it kind of just ran parallel. There were some needs that I had that he fulfilled, and there were some needs that he had that I fulfilled. And so we just became business partners and honestly best friends. People who meet us think that we have known each other our whole lives. We haven't. We met when I was 32 and he was right at 35. So from there, we just began we linked arms and became business partners and just started working along this journey. So of course, what we tell people in regards to the Dream Initiative, in regards to reentry, in regards to recidivism, in regards to desistance, we both traveled two different paths, right? So he's of course just as involved as a returned citizen And I'm more so second generation justice involved because my father was a U.S. Marshal and a police officer here in Nashville. And so honestly, like there's my uncle and my dad served a warrant and kicked in a door where Robert was, like they were looking for Robert. My dad actually was one of the arresting officers for Robert. Once we found out years and years later, like he walked into a family function and saw my dad and my uncle and was like, wait, I know these guys. So from there, it just became something where seeing it's always been something that I've been sympathetic to, meaning I understand the hardships, I see your struggles, I feel sorry, but I've never really been empathetic until I met Robert. And so through working with him and understanding kind of his journey, his struggles, his pitfalls, the things that he's had to overcome, and seeing that there were so many other people experiencing those same things, it was just second nature. You know, like you said in the bio, I'm very, very passionate about education in all facets. So whether that's higher education, secondary, post-secondary, or whether it's just relearning a system, relearning an environment, relearning a situation, that's just something that I've been passionate about. So the passion that I saw that he had, the things that I've seen and witnessed him overcome, and then it aligned. And so we started the Dream Initiative, called, and of course, what you found out weeks ago, DREAM is an acronym for Decreasing Recidivism Through Education and Mentorship. And it's where we focus primarily on providing meaningful and impactful educational resources for returned and disenfranchised individuals, whether youth. We do have Impact Youth Outreach here in Nashville. So we service everybody from 13 until you go into glory and meet the Lord, whatever that looks like in between. But we just really want people to be able to get a fair second chance, or a fair 10th chance. You know, there are people where it takes longer to catch on and longer to understand and longer to change, but we really feel like no person should be left behind. So that's what we work on.
That is incredible. That is incredible. I mean, there's so many things in there that I want to unpack. There's so many things
Definitely.
Okay, wait. So let me start with because that barbecue story and Robert
Gordon, hilarious.
Right. Hilarious.
Hilarious.
But before we go there, you had mentioned that you guys service 13 until they go home to meet the Lord. Like, so until so you guys see a large range of individuals. This is Dr. Khanna's Returning Youth Show. So I do want to focus on those that are between the ages of 13 and let's say 26.
Okay.
And how do you see major differences in the needs of individuals that are in between the ages of 13 and 26 versus those that are maybe over the age of 30? Or how are those needs different for those younger people that are now post-incarcerated and are trying to get back on track in their life?
So the biggest difference that we see is the developmental difference, right? So after, let's say like the frontal lobe, right? Up until the age of 27, your frontal lobe is not fully developed. So at 27 beyond, kind of, that's when you settle into your routine. You understand you want more out of life, which is why a lot of people who are incarcerated, when you ask them what was the pivotal point, what made you change, it was, I just got older and I realized that this wasn't what I wanted to do. And what we realized is that those youth, primarily those in between those ages, like you said, up to 26, a lot of them are still impressionable. A lot of them are still living to please their friends. A lot of them are not able to not be pulled in to their environments. So a lot of them get out and they go back to the same thing. And so those are the things that we have to really address, right? We spend so much time when we focus on treating youth, which, classified or defined by the United Nations, youth goes up to 24, 26. And so when we think about really, really handling and treating those youth, what we don't address is the situation that caused the behavior. We spend so much time, and that's across the judicial system completely. We spend so much time on the behavior that we don't really address the situation. And that's one of the needs. We get individuals are released, and they are sent back to the same environment that created the behavior that got them locked away. And so what are some things that we can do? Because and that's one of the biggest things that we preach, is that it's so easy. If you've never been in that position, if you've never been that youth, if you've never been that incarcerated individual, it's so easy for us to sit back and say, okay, well, you went to jail or prison. You said that that's a rehabilitative place. You should change. Do you want to go back to prison? And it's not that easy, right? And so we have to really understand, what is it that we can do? What differences can we make in the environment and in the community? And that's why re-entry is not just a, okay, this is how you fix your credit. This is where you go for scholarships. This is where you go for housing. It's so much more than that. It's time. Re-entry requires just as much impactful work in the community, because we have to change the environments that we're putting the people back in. And that's something that a lot of people don't focus on. And I think that's something that, being a part of the Returning Youth Initiative and being a founder or co-founder of the Dream Initiative, I think that that's something that we recognize equally, that it's not just the work that you do with the individual, it's the work that you do in the environment surrounding the individual. And what I haven't seen in my time in this work is enough emphasis or focus put on the community. You know, like what does it look like to support?
No, when you're finished, I have a question for you.
Okay. It's not so much, you know, what does it look like to maintain those relationships? What does it look like to bring those relationships back to the forefront? What does it look like to get out and still be a parent to your child that you might have left when they were 6 months old? What does it look like to have a relationship now that you're in 2021 and you might have gotten locked away when you were 20 in 2016? You know, those are two different time periods, two different changes. And a lot of people, because even as much as time progresses in a correctional facility, time really stays the same, because they don't have readily available access to technology. The advancements and the growth that we see in society, they don't really get to experience firsthand. And so they're really, really lacking and really behind, and there's no equity in payment, there's no equity in employment, there's no equity in housing. And so they're kind of forced back into a situation that they really want to change, but there's no opportunity for them to do so.
I happened to visit the beautiful city of Nashville in Tennessee, and I was able to experience right on hand the programs that you guys have developed. And I'm really, really, really impressed with the tremendous amount of work that both you and Robert have done in Nashville. The question for you is, how do you see the community really, have the community embraced your program? How difficult it was at the beginning, and you feel you're getting enough support from the community, elected official? How do you guys, what's the sentiment of the program that you guys are establishing in Nashville?
The biggest thing that and getting the community involved, the biggest thing that we had to do was to show the community how it impacts them. And they were so far removed, because when you think recidivism, when you think reentry, you typically think that this is only for the person who is returning to society, right? But if they can find a job, if they're unemployed, then of course affects economic development, which then impacts the person that thought that it didn't impact them. And so it's just about, what we realized that we had to do was that we really had to show the community how, even though you've never been to prison, even though you may not have a record, even though you may have never experienced these hardships, this impacts you. Maybe not as much, but it definitely still impacts you to some proportion. And them seeing that, they're like, okay, I get it. And then they start to catch on. And it's about turning, what we have to do is become, because we're a country that's very, very empathetic to a lot of causes, and then sympathetic to some. And it's about converting them from that sympathy to that empathy. And that's what we're trying to figure out. And that's what we're working to do every day. The community here has embraced us, but I honestly believe that they've embraced us, not so much because a lot of people believe in reentry, but really because they see what Robert has done with his second chance, right? And so what we have as the Dream Initiative,
him as an individual, or him
right,
as the leader of the organization, or him as an
individual? Him as an individual. So of course, you know, he's part of the Dream Initiative. He's a co-founder of the Dream Initiative. He's the co-founder of, or he's the founder of Impact Youth Outreach. But as an individual, as a man who had a federal charge and served 5 years in a federal prison, you can't deny the change that he's made. You can't deny the progress that he has experienced. And so what we really see is that a lot of people, one, they look at him and they see an example. They see that if given the opportunity, and even if not given the, because he wasn't given the opportunity, I want to make that very, very clear. Robert was never given the opportunity. Robert made his opportunity. And that's what we're trying to teach. Even if it's not, he shouldn't be the exception to the rule. Robert should be the standard. Every returned citizen should be a Robert Sherrill. And so that's what we have working to our advantage in regards to getting the community, is because they see firsthand, they get a glimpse of a person who, if educated correctly, if given the proper opportunities, or whether they have to make them themselves or given to them through the community, whatever it is, what they get to see is a person who refused to live the same. Yeah. You know, and was it so much that when he got out, the appeal of the streets was gone? No, because once you are returned to society, you are placed in this category, you are given this stigma, and there's really no chance to succeed. If you're married, if you have children, you're probably on child support and you're in arrears, your license is probably revoked, you have no voting rights. Employers, if they're willing to employ you, they'll employ you at a lower rate because they know that you need the position because you have to meet probation and parole requirements. Housing, you can't stay here. Like when we first started the Dream Initiative, we applied for a apartment. Robert applied for an apartment just to see. And they told him that since his offense had happened in the last 99 years, that he was denied. In 99 years, we wouldn't need, like, there's no person that's living right now that would need housing in 99 years, like in our age bracket. And so, you know, there's all of these barriers, all of these reasons not to change, all of these reasons to stay the same and to go back to what you know, because what you know has worked. And yeah, there's a risk associated, but the risk is worth the end result when you have a pathway or no opportunity to get you to where you want to be. And so that's the thing that we've really, really been pushing to the community, is not so much that he shouldn't, or that you can't see yourself, but okay, now that you see this person who has done it, now that you see the poster child of re-entry, now let's talk about what are some things that we can do as non-justice involved individuals to make sure that this journey is easier.
Wow. Okay, so again, so many things to unpack what you said. Wait, but I want to go a little bit backwards, because you had said something very interesting a couple minutes ago about in just in language, how we think about jail systems, how we think about where people are being incarcerated, right? And we refer to jails as correctional facilities or rehabilitation facilities, right? The reality is that there is no type of correction or rehabilitation that's actually happening, and that part of it, that part of someone's life, doesn't actually happen until the incarceration phase, when they enter a program like the Dream Initiative or like Dr. Khanna's program, when they're actually in a place that's doing the work to help them enter the world, to actually correct those things, to get the mental help that they need, to get the jobs that they need, all those things that people require in a correctional or rehabilitation place. I find it interesting that the language around jails is correction or rehabilitation, when in fact that is not. But yet,
farthest thing from it.
Exactly, the furthest thing from it. And in fact, you know, but the state the monies, the finances are not going
go to those organizations.
They go to the jails. They go to the jail
Mm-hmm.
system. They're not going to the reentry or post-incarceration programs. And so if we're not getting money from the states, we a lot of people, they run the nonprofits, they have to use the community. And as Rafael just asked, like how accepting of the community is the program. More specifically, what can community members do, like right now, just as an individual community member, or even maybe like if you're on a neighborhood council, if you are on a city council, in a very localized level, what can community members do to actively support and help change perspective, change the narrative, do active work to have these post-incarceration programs actually feed into like real rehabilitation?
Right. And I want, so I want to go back to what you said. I'll answer that question. But when you said that correctional facilities and rehabilitative facilities, right? I called a prison and was like, hey, I have the reentry specialist. I have a card still sitting on my desk, honestly, a reentry specialist. And I told her, hey, we have this curriculum, you know, I understand. She was like, well, I do it. I do all of that. And I said, yeah, but you've never experienced the hardships. You know, we really want to start working with you all and getting somebody who's relatable to the inmates that are there so that they can see themselves in somebody, because you telling me, you give me this rose-colored glasses approach to reentry. And she was like, yeah, I do all of that. And it's one of those things, kind of like diversity and inclusion, where it's just and it's just a buzzword. So I do the work, so it's not really, we're trying. So that's a whole nother conversation. But the biggest thing that communities can do is to advocate. And there's really no advocacy around reentry. You have certain individuals who are really dug in and they're doing the work, but because there's such a negative connotation to having a record of any kind, right? Whether it's a misdemeanor, whether it's a felony, whether it's federal, whether it's state, whatever it is, there's such a negative connotation. We have this idea that everybody can change except for individuals with a background, right? So like, that's where most communities are stuck.
Everybody has a background. It's just that some folks just didn't go to jail for it. Everybody.
That's what I said. Everybody has done something, but some people just didn't get caught. Like it's it. Whether you went in the gas station and accidentally picked up the pack of gum and forgot to pay for it at the register, or whether you sold,
maybe you jaywalked across the street one time.
That's it. We've all done something that was capable of landing us with a charge on our background. Some of us just didn't get caught. And so, but the community, and of course we can say that because we're in this work, we're committed to this work, but there are just some individuals who can't see it that way, right? We have all these isms that we want to focus on and that we categorize, and then we're not big on is equality, right? So what Robert and I, what we talk, our little joke is that prior to getting pardoned by Donald Trump this last time, he was American enough to pay his taxes, but he wasn't American enough to have full access to his constitutional rights.
Now that you mentioned that, you should repeat that again. I mean, you're referring to Robert Sherrill. He made history, and people should know
made history. He made it. So in 2019, he was pardoned by the Tennessee State Governor, Governor Haslam, on his last day in office. And then this year, 2 years later, 2020, January 20th of 2021, he received a federal or presidential pardon from outgoing President Donald Trump. And so it's something that in what we've heard, especially from his attorney, his state pardon attorney, you know, he's one of the only who has ever done that, something like that. Robert has no state record. And what people also have to understand is that a pardon is forgiveness, right? So he has no state record. We were able to take his state pardon, and and get his record completely expunged. The federal pardon restored all of his rights. And that was something that he's been without for years. And so prior to that, though, there were contractual opportunities, government contracts, basic civil rights that Robert just couldn't have. And that's the same for any returned citizen, regardless of how much you change your life, regardless of how much work you do, regardless of what you put in. It's very, very rare that you get out what you put in as a returned citizen. And there's no equity in it. There's not even equality in it. And so there is a need for advocacy for this demographic of disenfranchised individual that, you know, outside of criminal justice reform, which of course, yes, is a big buzzword, but it's so much more than individuals who were given wrong sentences. It's so much more than rappers turned public advocates. It's so much more than getting someone released from the Innocence Project. Criminal justice reform is also for the 16-year-old who's sitting in juvenile and has been there since they were 14 and who is now just found out that he's getting charged as an adult. Criminal justice reform is for the individual who served 23 years in federal prison and got out, but now they have nowhere to go. Criminal justice reform is addressing situational homelessness. It's addressing mental health crisis. It's addressing fair employment and fair wages. It's so much more than what people put on the trend. And so because of that, I think that when we think, like, you know, when most people think criminal justice reform, they honestly think Kim Kardashian and Meek Mill and Jay-Z. Honestly, like that's honestly what they feel, because that's who have really been put at the forefront of the fight. And it's so much more than that. It's so much bigger than them. And there's not, the work that they're doing, of course, is phenomenal. Any work in this field, any work in this trend, any work in this area is much needed and is amazing work. But it's so much bigger than just the picture that you see, right? It's one of those, you can't see the forest for the trees. We're in that kind of area in regards to criminal justice reform. And I think that the community really doesn't know how to advocate for rights for these individuals. They don't know what does advocacy look like for someone who needs a second chance? What does advocacy look like for someone who needs fair employment? You know, most people think, well, he has a job. That's great. Yeah, he does have a job. Minimum wage in Tennessee, I think, is still at like just below $8 an hour. In Nashville, it's just below $8 an hour. And our cost of living is $90,000 a year. You know how many hours you have to work in order to make $90,000 at $8 an hour?
I've been in California. I get it.
Listen.
But Dr. T, like, what is that? How? What can community members do? Like, how should people be advocating? What are those to do, those actionable items to really have effective change, to really have real advocacy? Mm-hmm. What are those tools that people need, especially in Tennessee?
Aligning themselves with organizations who are doing the legislative work. There are some legislative changes and legislation that needs to be put in place. Like, there's a federal mandate that says that if you have a drug charge, as long as it was drug paraphernalia, there's discriminatory practices in housing that covers you. So if you have a drug paraphernalia charge, then they can't discriminate on you for housing. But if you were the drug seller, then they can discriminate against you as much as they want to. So there are some legislation changes. So they need, of course, aligning yourself with organizations who are doing the work. A lot of those organizations have volunteer opportunities for education. It's even if you have a small business or if you work for a small business or for a corporation, advocating for fair practices, fair hiring practices, fair wage for those individuals. If you work for an educational institution or something like that, if you have a trade, there's a lot of apprenticeship opportunities out there that a lot of second or return citizens don't have access to. So it's about where you are. It's not a lot of people, because of course it is, with everything that we experienced last year, it is a lot to ask somebody to go outside of where they are if they're not passionate about this work. but it's about doing what you can where you are. So, you know, whether that is if you feel like you can align with an organization and have rights restoration camps for individuals who have returned, or if you feel like you can go and you can um, speak on behalf of an individual or work alongside an organization for legislative practices, whether you can go to HR, like I said, and just speak to them about fair hiring opportunities, or if it is just coming in and being a mentor, that's advocacy enough, right? Because a lot of times we can do all of the work that we can as an organization. We can do all the work that we can as someone who are passionate and as enthusiasts for criminal justice reform. But until we get to a place where we are able to change the mindsets, right? And that's the biggest thing that we talk about at the Dream Initiative. Our tagline is discovering desistance, because we focus so much on the likelihood that someone is going to reoffend that we forget that there's an opportunity to make an actual change. And so that's what desistance is. It's the likelihood of change in an individual. And so that's what we focus on. We really, really focus on change of mindset, change of environment, change of outlook. And sometimes that's just, as an advocate, you tour. It's about having someone out here who's relatable, someone who you can be completely honest with them, because, you know, case managers are great. They're there for a reason, but I'm not going to tell my case manager every struggle that I have, because really what I'm trying to do is work this program or work this opportunity so that I can get out of it and get on with my life. And so if I can have someone who I can talk to when my days are dark, when I feel like, you know what, going back and getting a bird and flipping it is not, that don't sound too bad to me. And so there's so many different levels of advocacy and so many different ways to engage. And I think that it's all about where a person can go, or where they can dig in and they are comfortable.
There is no doubt that Robert, he's a champion. I mean, when I saw what he really created and what he really built, I'm very impressed. And I'm telling you, as a business owner, I've been in business for over 35 years, created multi-million-dollar company, and I know what it takes to build a company from scratch. As a matter of fact, let me share this. I saw the company that he created. Those of you that are watching on social media, this is Robert's company. He's a CFO, the CEO of Imperial Cleaning Systems, which is a company that he created, in which he also provides jobs opportunities to post-incarcerated people, so young people. I mean, what he's really done, he's like, for us, or for me, he's like the poster child of what really to really be happening out there. Someone that spent, I believe, like 9 years, you know, in jail, and then came out of that one after going through all of that drama, all of that suffering, all of that negative stuff, coming out.
Right.
He started working, I believe he started working in restaurant, you know, washing dishes from the bottom up onto establish a successful business. And now he's utilizing that business to help others and to keep promoting and the program that you guys created. I want to connect this, and I want you to talk about it, because I know it's important that people know that Robert is also an author. He just wrote a book. He wrote a book. Where is his book? He wrote a book.
Go back the other way. Right
he
there.
wrote a book. He wrote a book, The Journey Back to Know, that I'm sure that you, one way or another, helped and collaborated while he was running. Why he talked to us about this book, his book, and those of you that are watching and want to buy the book, here it is in Amazon. It's only $14.95. And if you want to learn about his journey, talk about his journey. What is behind this book?
So The Journey Back to Now is Robert's autobiography. It's the book that he penned that talks about how, because people see him, and of course he's tattooed from his neck down, right? From his neck down, he's covered in tattoos, and people see that. And of course that's a glimpse to the past, you know, because we associate, as a society, we associate tattoos with a hood life or things like that. And so, but people see him typically as the guy on the cover, you know, the buttoned up guy who wears business suits and has a successful multi-million-dollar janitorial company. But what they don't know is that Robert got out of prison in 2013. and that he didn't start his business until 2014. So that multi-million-dollar business that is award-winning, that he's received awards for, is only 7 years old. And so what the journey back to now is it's a glimpse into the hardships, the things that he had to overcome to get him to this point. In the back of that book, there are all of his mugshots as an adult. And then they get a glimpse of his first mugshot as a 12-year-old. And that's where it started. You know, he was born and raised in Nashville. His stepfather got a divorce when he was 9. He moved to a notorious housing project here in Nashville. We call it Dodge City. And it's the name pretty much captures kind of the hardships in it. When people hear Dodge City in Nashville, you know, they get scared. From there, they were evicted when he was 13. He found out when he was coming home from school, walked to his grandmother's house. And then it was kind of like in that distance between, it was about an hour and a half walk from the housing project to his grandmother's house. And in that time, he kind of became a rebel with a cause. You know, he was just, he decided to kind of strike out on his own. And at 13, he started living on the streets and started selling drugs. And he was in and out of juvenile detention facilities. Even his juvenile case manager and attorney, they're back in contact now. But she was just like, I could see that he was a great kid. He was just missing the opportunity. And he dropped out of school in the 8th grade. I think he completed like three months of the 9th grade. And ended up getting his GED in a juvenile facility here in Nashville that he ended up escaping. That's where he caught his first adult charge. It was escape from a penal institution, which was a felony at the time. It was considered a violent crime. And he escaped, and then started getting arrested at 19 for drugs, driving on suspended license, just various things.
It was words are interesting. You said it was considered a violent crime. It's not that he was being violent towards anyone. It was just that.
No, since he escaped from a penal institution, they considered it a violent crime, regardless of if he jumped out of a window. He was this time he walked out of the front door. He walked out of the front door of the youth transition home. And because it was escape, they considered it a violent felony. And so they went back and forth.
It's just a way to sit there and
change, pump up charges and things like that, because that honestly has a lot to do with, you know, when you go and get sentenced for other crimes in the future that you may commit in the future or things like that, then of course your past record plays a part in how harsh a sentence may be. And so from there,
it's harder to reduce those higher charges. I do want to, Dr. Tharpe, we have spoken to Robert.
Okay.
We did get his story from his words. And so I want to refocus and center on you and the work that you do and the work that you're doing, because we have 5 minutes left and you are an amazing individual. And we have heard Robert's story from his mouth. And so I really want to just get back to what are you doing now, and what is up for you next in the work that you're doing with Robert, with the Dream Initiative, or whatever you would like to share? But I really want to focus on what next steps are you taking right now to really build and help with post-incarceration and individuals that are post-incarcerated.
So of course we have the Transition Pathways, which is our 15-module curriculum that centers around reentry. We also have Exodus Support Group, which is our support group that is facilitated by Robert so returned citizens get to actually communicate with someone who's relatable to them. And then we have Project 180, which is our workforce development and placement program. But we're also now developing a curriculum that supports families, you know, because families, what does it look like as a family member? How can you support an individual who's returned? So we're doing those kind of curriculums. We're also putting in we're developing a curriculum for returned citizens to now become case managers. So what does it look like to be a liaison between a case manager and a returning citizen, so that we're able to really, really affect and impact what they need and provide them the resources and the tools that they need. And then for myself, like you said, I have the book, The Pursuit of Done. It's called The Pursuit of Done. The subtitle is From Overthinker to Doer. Talking people through getting them out of their head and what does it look like to really bring your dreams to reality. And I am actually starting my 10-year track at the Tennessee State University here in Nashville, where I'll be teaching 2 classes in the fall. And ultimately, you know, as we've said, and as we kind of harp on in the interview, education is my passion. And so I see my retirement plan, because I'm an entrepreneur too as well. So I see my retirement plan being as a president or as a dean, as a chancellor at a institution of higher learning. So I'm starting on that path now, but that's it. You know, just still being the mom. I have 1 son, he's 14, light of my life, do everything for him. So he's who I see myself. You know, I really work as hard as I do and as much as I do, and I go to the depths that I do for him, because I know that he's proud of me and he's proud of the work that I do. But I see myself in this fight for the long run. And I know Robert does too. We really just want to make a change, and it's so much bigger than us, which is why we've done the work with little to no accolades, with no funding, with no grants, because it's not about that. It's really about making people as whole as they can be. And I think that you know, that's why when Dr. Khanna and Rafael and Sharon and Ryan and everybody came to Nashville, it was when you see people who are passionate about the work, you know, with little regard for the praise, because there is none in this work, but with little regard for the praise and little regard for the accolades, and it's not to see what you can get out of it. That's why we aligned with them, because we saw that they cared just as much about this demographic as we did, and that's a rarity. You know, it's really, really rare to find some people who will come and talk to you and you find out that your mission and your vision and your purpose aligns with theirs completely. So that's our goal from now on.
We are getting close to time. We are almost out of time. There's so many more questions I actually want to ask. I'm going to assume a lot of the reason on why you do what you do, of course, has to do with education, because you are an educator, in fact, but you're also a mother of a 14-year-old Black son, which would absolutely affect how you look at incarceration, post-incarceration, all of those things. 1 in every 4 Black men are incarcerated at some point in their life. And so is there anything that you want to leave the people with, any words of wisdom, anything that you want to share for the folks that are listening, that are watching on YouTube or on Facebook at returningyouth.com? Any words of wisdom that you want to leave with the folk?
I think the biggest thing that I have is just, you know, like, let's not judge a book by its cover. These are a group of individuals who deserve second chances, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th chances, whatever chance that they're on. The same olive branch that we wish and pray were extended to us, you know, they deserve as well. And the advocacy piece, find out what you can do, where you are, and do that. Nothing is too small to get involved, whether it's, you know, you volunteering down at a shelter, because a lot of these men are at shelter. A lot of these men and women are at shelters because situational homelessness, whatever it is, just do the work. Just dig in and do the work and align yourself with organizations. We're an organization. You also have, you know, the Dr. Khanna's Returning Youth Initiative. There's so many opportunities to get involved, and just get involved. This demand, this trend, this idea deserves a lot of the work that anyone else does.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Tharpe. We are so grateful that you were here to join us today. Rafael, do you have any questions for Dr. Tharpe before we let her go? You're on mute, Rafael.
Yeah, I realize that she's a true educator. I guess that's what really runs on his veins. But I know that she created also a curriculum, the educational curriculum, believe it or not, of the program that that they are implementing in Nashville. And I just wanted for her to briefly talk about what inspired her. You created a program, Dr. T, about the educational program. Can you briefly talk about it and what's the value of that program?
So we have it's called Transition Pathways, and it's paving a path to a brighter tomorrow. It's the first reentry curriculum designed is for returning citizens by returning citizens. We're the first of its kind to be done. And it's, like I said, it's 15 modules. In the first module, they get an introduction to Robert. And then in the last module, they get an introduction to me, and I just congratulate them on the changes that they're deciding to make. But we walk them through everything from resume recreation to cover letter creation, credit, housing, employment, education, mental health, everything. And so it's just a 15 module curriculum, like I said, by a returned citizen for returning citizens. And what our primary focus was just to give an educational opportunity that was not rose-colored, that was not this pretty painted picture of life is going to be so beautiful once you are released, giving them some truths, allowing them to understand the hardships. And what it started out is, although it's called Transition Pathways now, it is a free ebook also. And it is called, that was called Transition Pitfalls. So we changed it, of course, and prettied it up a little bit for the curriculum, but essentially it was called Transition Pitfalls. And that's really what it was. We wanted to talk about, we were just wanting to talk about what are some of the things that people may experience as a returned citizen.
Dr. T, I want to thank you so much again. That amazing. Tell us where we can find out more about that. What is the website really quickly?
The Dream Initiative USA.com.
Awesome.
And it has everything there. Yeah. And from there you'll find Robert's social media, you'll find mine, you'll find the company's social media. And in July, in a couple of weeks, we'll also be hosting Desistance Week. So we would love for everybody to be a part of that. And Desistance Week is July 18th through the 24th. And it's a week full of information where we're really promoting the likelihood of change and having a candid conversation around advocacy and recidivism.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tharpe. Again, that's the dreaminitiativeusa.com. And as always, this is Dr. Khanna's Returning Youth Show. You can visit us at returningyouth.com. We will find us every single Friday from 3 to 4 Eastern Time at WPAT 9:30 a.m. or at Facebook at Returning Youth or on YouTube at Returning Youth. So find us, watch the show, like, comment, go to our website if you want to join, if you want to become a community, a county manager, if you are interested in how to get involved, visit returningyouth.com and tune in next week. Thank you all so much and have a wonderful day.
All right, y'all be blessed.
I hope to see you soon. I'm going to be in Nashville soon, so
yeah, definitely. So nice talking to y'all.
Same.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Recording stopped.
Thank you, Sharon.